This is why you must pray before going out or traveling this December. 0130 Hook. December 18th, 2022. Sarah Mitchell kissed her two daughters goodbye, grabbed her purse, and walked out into the cold Minnesota morning to drive to her mother's house for an early Christmas celebration. She was running late, her mind already racing through the list of things she needed to pick up on the way, the gifts still unwrapped in her trunk, the casserole she'd promised to bring. She reached her car, clicked the key fob, and paused. For just a moment, standing there in her driveway with frost crunching under her boots, she felt it. That quiet pull, that gentle reminder, pray first. But she was already 15 minutes behind schedule. Her mother was expecting her by noon, and she told herself she'd pray on the drive. She climbed in, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway at 10:47 a.m. By 12:33 p.m., her car was upside down in a frozen ditch, her phone shattered on the floor, and emergency dispatchers were receiving a call from a passing motorist whose voice was shaking so badly they had to ask him to repeat himself 3 times. There's a car in the ditch off Highway 52. It's completely destroyed. But I'm telling you, someone pulled her out. I saw them, and then they just vanished. When paramedics arrived 9 minutes later, they found Sarah unconscious on the shoulder of the road, 40 feet from her car, lying in the snow, as if someone had carefully placed her there. Her scarf was still around her neck, and there were no footprints anywhere near her except the ones leading from the road where the motorist had run to check on her. What happened in those 9 minutes defied every logical explanation investigators could offer. And what Sarah remembered when she woke up 3 days later would haunt everyone who heard it. Because she wasn't supposed to survive, and according to the physics of the crash, she didn't survive alone. 133T's key questions. How does a woman walk away from a crash that flipped her car 3 times and sent it careening into a frozen embankment at 74 miles per hour? Why did the first responder on scene insist he saw someone pull her from the wreckage, only to find her alone when he arrived? Why was Sarah's seatbelt unbuckled when she was found, even though she was unconscious and couldn't have unbuckled it herself? And why, when investigators reviewed the crash site, did they find something in the snow that made them stop talking and just stare? Something that shouldn't have been there. Something that suggested Sarah wasn't the only one at that crash site. Tonight, you're going to hear a story about a mother who forgot to pray, a crash that should have been fatal, and a presence that defied explanation. And I need to tell you right now, this isn't just another survival story. This is about what happens when we forget to cover ourselves in prayer before we step into the world. This is about the protection we don't see. And this is about the moment Sarah Mitchell realized that someone or something had been watching over her even when she forgot to ask. 310. Backstory. Character development. Sarah Mitchell was 38 years old, a single mother of 2 girls, ages 7 and 9, and worked as a medical billing coordinator at a clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. She wasn't wealthy, but she was stable, the kind of woman who packed school lunches the night before, kept a budget spreadsheet on her laptop, and made sure her daughters never missed a school event. Faith had always been a part of her life, though she'd admit she wasn't as consistent as she used to be. She'd grown up in a Christian home, attended church every Sunday as a child, and remembered her grandmother teaching her to pray before leaving the house. "You cover yourself in the Lord's protection," her grandmother used to say, her hands clasped over Sarah's small ones. "You never know what's waiting for you out there." Sarah had carried that habit into adulthood, praying every morning before work, before trips, before anything that required her to leave the safety of her home. But lately, with the demands of single motherhood, work deadlines, and the constant exhaustion that came with doing everything alone, she'd been slipping. Some mornings she forgot. Some mornings she was too rushed. And she told herself it was fine, that God understood, that she'd make up for it later. December had been especially chaotic. Christmas was 2 weeks away, and Sarah was trying to make it special for her girls despite her tight budget. She'd been working overtime, picking up extra shifts, and staying up late to wrap presents and bake cookies. Her mother, Eleanor, had invited them to an early Christmas gathering at her home 2 hours north, and Sarah had promised to bring her famous green bean casserole and help decorate the tree. The night before the trip, Sarah stayed up until 1 in the morning wrapping gifts, her eyes heavy, her fingers fumbling with the tape. She set her alarm for 8, giving herself just enough time to shower, get the girls ready, and load the car. But when the alarm went off, she hit snooze twice. And by the time she dragged herself out of bed, it was already 9:15. She rushed through the morning, throwing on clothes, braiding her daughter's hair while they ate cereal, shoving the casserole dish into a tote bag. Her older daughter, Emma, asked if they could pray before they left, and Sarah paused, her hand on the door, her mind already halfway to the car. "We'll pray in the car, sweetie, I promise." But she didn't. She dropped the girls off at her ex-husband's house, where they'd be staying for the weekend, and then headed toward the highway, her mind racing through her to-do list. The casserole, the gifts, the traffic. She didn't think about praying. She didn't think about protection. She just drove. The roads were clear that morning, the sky a pale, washed-out gray, the kind of December sky that feels like it's holding its breath. Sarah merged onto Highway 52, turned on the radio, and settled into the drive. She was making good time. She'd be at her mother's house by noon if traffic stayed light. She relaxed into her seat, humming along to a Christmas song, thinking about how good it would be to see her mom, to sit by the fire with a cup of coffee, to let someone else take care of her for a change. She didn't see the black ice. At 12:29 p.m., Sarah's car hit a patch of frozen road that had been invisible in the pale winter light. Her tires lost traction instantly. The car started to slide, slowly at first, and then faster, the steering wheel useless in her hands. She tried to correct, tried to brake, but the car spun, once, twice, and then left the road entirely, flipping as it tumbled down the embankment. Sarah's world became a chaos of sound and motion. The crunch of metal, the shattering of glass, the violent jolt of her body against the seatbelt, and then the world went silent. The car came to rest upside down, the roof crumpled, the windshield gone. Sarah hung from her seatbelt, her head pounding, her vision blurred. She could taste blood. She tried to move, but her body wouldn't respond. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. And then she heard it. A voice. Calm. Close. Clear. "I've got you." She felt hands on her shoulders. Strong, steady hands. She felt the seatbelt release. And then she felt herself being lifted, carried, moved through the wreckage as if she weighed nothing at all. She wanted to open her eyes, wanted to see who was helping her, but her eyelids were too heavy. And then she felt cold, snow against her back, the sting of winter air on her face, and then nothing. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. 10:20. The incident. The crash. Trevor Mason was driving south on Highway 52 when he saw the car go off the road. He was a long-haul trucker, 46 years old, had been driving for 23 years, and had seen his share of accidents. But this one made his stomach drop. He watched the car flip, watched it tumble down the embankment, watched it disappear into the ditch below. He slammed on his brakes, pulled over onto the shoulder, and grabbed his phone. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely dial 911. "There's been an accident on Highway 52, mile marker 34. A car just went off the road. It flipped multiple times. I'm going down to check on the driver." He climbed out of his truck, the cold hitting him like a wall, and started running toward the embankment. The snow was deep, the slope steep, and he slipped twice on his way down. And then he saw something that made him stop. A figure, standing near the overturned car, tall, still, wearing something dark. Trevor squinted, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The figure bent down, reached into the car, and pulled something out. Pulled someone out. Trevor blinked, his breath fogging in the cold air. And when he opened his eyes again, the figure was gone. Just gone. No footprints. No sound. Nothing. Trevor's heart was hammering. He ran the rest of the way down, his boots crunching through the snow, and found Sarah lying on her back 40 feet from the car, her eyes closed, her breathing shallow. He dropped to his knees beside her, his hands hovering over her, afraid to move her. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" No response. He looked back at the car. The roof was caved in. The windshield was shattered. The driver's side door was hanging open, and the seatbelt was unbuckled. Trevor's mind raced. He'd seen the figure pull her out. He'd seen it with his own eyes. But now, there was no one here except him and Sarah. He pulled off his coat and laid it over her, his hands still shaking. "Hang on," he whispered. "Help is coming." When the ambulance arrived 7 minutes later, Trevor was still kneeling beside Sarah, talking to her even though she couldn't hear him, telling her she was going to be okay. The paramedics, a man named Jason and a woman named Keisha, jumped out and ran toward them. "What happened?" Jason asked, kneeling beside Sarah, checking her pulse. Trevor stood up, his face pale. "She went off the road. The car flipped. I saw it happen. Did you pull her out?" "No. She was already out when I got here." Keisha frowned, looking at the distance between Sarah and the car. "Already out? How?" Trevor hesitated. "I don't know. I saw someone. I saw someone pull her out. But when I got down here, there was no one." Jason and Keisha exchanged a glance. "You saw someone?" Jason asked carefully. Trevor nodded. "I know how it sounds, but I saw them, and then they were gone." Keisha didn't argue. She just radioed for additional units and started checking Sarah's injuries. Broken ribs, concussion, lacerations on her face and hands. But she was alive, stable, breathing. Jason looked at the car, then at Sarah, then at the snow around them. No drag marks. No blood trail. No footprints. Except Trevor's. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. Keisha didn't respond. She just worked, her hands steady, her mind already running through the list of things that didn't add up. If this part is making sense, drop a comment saying, "I'm still here." Let's see who's really watching. 2035 to 0 Aftermath and Investigation. Sergeant Nicole Hart arrived at the scene 20 minutes later, her patrol car rolling slowly past the skid marks on the highway, her eyes scanning the embankment. She'd been a state trooper for 14 years, and she could reconstruct most accidents just by looking at the evidence. But this one felt wrong from the start. She climbed down the embankment carefully, her boots sinking into the snow, and walked toward the overturned car. The damage was catastrophic. The roof was completely crushed. The steering column was bent inward. The windshield was gone. The driver's seat was soaked in blood. Nicole crouched beside the open door and examined the seatbelt. It had been unbuckled. She looked at the distance between the car and where the paramedics had found Sarah, 42 feet. She stood up and walked it slowly, counting her steps, her breath visible in the cold air. 42 feet. Through snow. Uphill. And Sarah had been unconscious when Trevor found her. Nicole turned back to the car and frowned. "This doesn't make sense," she said aloud. Her partner, Officer Ben Crawford, came up beside her. "What doesn't?" She was unconscious. Seatbelt was on when the car stopped. So who unbuckled it? And how did she get up here? Ben shrugged. "Maybe adrenaline. People do crazy things in shock. Adrenaline doesn't move you 42 feet through snow without leaving a trace. Look at this." She pointed at the snow around Sarah's body. No drag marks, no footprints, nothing. Ben looked at Trevor, who was sitting in the back of the ambulance, a blanket around his shoulders. "The truck driver said he saw someone?" Nicole nodded. "Yeah, he said he saw someone pull her out, and then they disappeared." "Disappeared how?" "He doesn't know. One second they were there, the next they were gone." Ben didn't say anything. He just stared at the scene, his jaw tight. The investigation took 4 days. The crash reconstruction team analyzed the skid marks, the point of impact, the trajectory of the car. They concluded that Sarah had hit black ice at approximately 74 miles per hour, lost control, and flipped 3 times before coming to rest upside down in the ditch. The force of the impact should have been fatal. But Sarah had survived, and no one could explain how she'd ended up 42 feet from the car. The dashcam footage from Trevor's truck was reviewed frame by frame. It showed Sarah's car leaving the road, flipping, disappearing into the ditch. And then, for exactly 7 seconds, there was a shape near the overturned car. Tall, dark, indistinct. And then it was gone. The footage was sent to a forensics lab for enhancement. The analyst called Nicole 3 days later. "I don't know what to tell you, Sergeant. It's there, but it's not a person. It's not a vehicle. It's just a shadow. Like the light refracted wrong for a few seconds." Nicole asked if it could be a glitch. The analyst paused. "Maybe, but I've analyzed thousands of hours of footage, and I've never seen a glitch shaped like that." Nicole hung up and sat in silence for a long time. Then she drove to the hospital to talk to Sarah. 35-0, 45-0, the first twist, revelation. Sarah woke up on the 4th day. Her head was bandaged, her ribs were wrapped, and her left arm was in a cast. Her mother was sitting beside her bed, holding her hand, her eyes red from crying. When Sarah opened her eyes, Eleanor let out a sob of relief. "Oh, thank God. Thank God. You're awake." Sarah blinked slowly, her throat dry. "What happened?" "You were in an accident, sweetheart. A bad one. But you're okay. You're going to be okay." Sarah closed her eyes, trying to remember. The black ice, the spin, the flip, and then the voice. She opened her eyes again, her gaze distant. "Someone pulled me out." Eleanor frowned. "What?" "Someone pulled me out of the car. I felt hands. I felt arms around me. I heard a voice." Eleanor glanced at the nurse, standing nearby. The nurse shook her head slightly. "Mrs. Mitchell, you were found outside the car, but the first person to reach you was a truck driver. You were already lying in the snow when he got there." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "No. Someone pulled me out, I remember. I couldn't move, but I felt hands, strong hands, and I heard a voice saying, 'I've got you.'" Eleanor squeezed her hand. "Maybe it was an angel, honey. Maybe God sent someone to protect you." Sarah looked at her mother, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't pray, Mom. I forgot to pray before I left. I always pray, and I forgot." Eleanor pulled her into a gentle hug. "It's okay. It's okay. You're here. That's all that matters." When Sergeant Hart came to interview her 2 days later, she brought a folder with photos of the scene. She sat beside Sarah's bed, her voice calm and professional. "Miss Mitchell, I know this is difficult, but I need to ask you a few questions about the accident." Sarah nodded. Nicole showed her a photo of her car. "Do you remember what happened right before you lost control?" "I hit ice. The car started sliding. I tried to correct, but it just kept spinning. And then I flipped." "Do you remember the impact?" Sarah hesitated. "I remember hanging upside down. I remember not being able to move. And then I heard a voice." "What did the voice say?" "It said, 'I've got you.' And then I felt hands unbuckling my seatbelt. I felt arms lifting me. And then I was outside." Nicole showed her another photo. The open door, the unbuckled seatbelt, the empty snow. "Miss Mitchell, there was no one else at the scene. The truck driver saw you lying in the snow alone. There were no footprints, no drag marks, nothing to suggest anyone else was present." Sarah's face crumpled. "I'm not making this up. I know what I felt." Nicole softened. "I'm not saying you're making it up. I'm just trying to understand what happened." She pulled out one more photo. The dash cam, still from Trevor's truck, the shadow near the car. Do you recognize this? Sarah stared at the image, her breath catching. She pointed at the dark shape with a trembling finger. That's who pulled me out. Nicole looked at the photo, then back at Sarah. Miss Mitchell, that's not a person. That's just a shadow. Sarah shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I don't care what it looks like. Someone saved me. Tear. 45-0, 55-0 final twist. Resolution. Sarah was discharged from the hospital 3 weeks later. She came home to her daughters, who had made welcome home signs and baked cookies with their father. She hugged them so tightly they complained, and she didn't let go. That night, after the girls were asleep, Sarah sat in her living room in the dark, staring at nothing. Eleanor had stayed with her, and she came out of the guest room to find Sarah crying. What's wrong, honey? Sarah looked at her mother, her voice breaking. I should have prayed. I should have covered myself before I left. And I didn't. Eleanor sat beside her. Sarah, you can't blame yourself. But I can. I always pray. Always. And that one time I didn't? I almost died. What if God was protecting me anyway? What if he sent someone even though I forgot to ask? Eleanor pulled her close. Then he's more merciful than we deserve. Sarah's phone buzzed on the table. It was a text from her daughter Emma, sent earlier that day. Sarah had missed it. The message read, Mom, I prayed for you every day you were in the hospital. I asked God to keep you safe. I love you. Sarah stared at the message, her hands shaking. She scrolled up and found another text, sent the morning of the accident at 10:52 a.m., 5 minutes after Sarah had left her house. Mom, I just prayed for you to have a safe trip to Grandma's. See you soon. Sarah showed Eleanor the phone, tears pouring down her face. She prayed for me. She prayed for me right before the crash. Eleanor read the message, her own eyes filling with tears. Oh, sweetheart. I forgot to pray. But Emma didn't. She covered me. And God sent someone to pull me out of that car. They held each other and cried. 4 weeks after Sarah came home, Sergeant Hart received a voicemail at the station. It was from Trevor Mason, the truck driver. Sergeant Hart, this is Trevor. I need to tell you something. I drove past the crash site again last week, and I saw it again. The figure, the shadow, standing right where the car went off the road. Same place, same shape, and then it was gone. I don't know what it was, but I know what I saw. Nicole listened to the message 3 times. Then she closed Sarah's case file, marked it as resolved, and locked it in her drawer. Some cases don't have answers you can write in a report. Some cases you just have to accept. Sarah never forgot to pray again. Every morning, before she left the house, she stood at her door, closed her eyes, and asked for protection. And every time, she whispered the same words. Thank you for sending someone when I forgot to ask. 55-0, 60-0 engagement, CTA. So, let me ask you this. What do you think happened on that highway? Was Sarah protected by divine intervention? Was it an angel sent to pull her from the wreckage? Or do you believe it was just a series of unexplainable coincidences? And here's the harder question. If you were Sarah, if you forgot to pray that one time, would you feel the same guilt she carried? Would you believe that God protected you anyway? This December, as we rush through the chaos of the holidays, as we forget to slow down, forget to pray, forget to cover ourselves, how many of us are walking out into the world unprotected? How many of us are one patch of black ice away from realizing we should have asked for help? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you believe. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you to pray before you step out that door, hit the like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because this isn't just Sarah's story. This is a reminder that protection is real, that prayers are heard, and that sometimes, even when we forget, someone is still watching over us. Next week, I'm bringing you another story that will leave you speechless. A story about a family trapped in their home during a disaster, and the voice that told them exactly when to run. Until then, take care. And don't forget to pray before you travel this December.